folks. I'm Alan Watt, and this is Cutting Through the Matrix on December the 17th, 2007. Newcomers, look into cuttingthroughthematrix.com for lots of information which hopefully will try and bring you into a reality, a different reality than the one, a higher reality than the one you're in. When you're in, it's primarily indoctrinated illusion. And going to the site, you can get lots of previous talks, and it's full of information on how we got here, why it works so well, the whole system, that is, and also look into Alan Watt Sentinel.eu, where you can download transcripts and pass them around in the various languages of Europe. It's interesting to watch the spraying in the sky is still going on, of course. It's a done deal. There's an oversight committee on aerospace and the Pentagon and so on, where they've admitted they're doing this. And one side of their mouth, they're talking about saving us from global warming. And on the other hand, they talk about the military purposes that it has. And of course, it's the latter that's really true, because it's being used to modify the weather and convince you there's a big crisis in global warming, and we must all react accordingly as we get conditioned into a completely new way of living or existing, because the world they're bringing in is going to be one of your own servitude. You'll serve the system. Servitude is a key term they're all using today. Tonight, the weather plummeted to minus 12 Fahrenheit. It's minus 24 centigrade. And I think all Canadians and some of the North Americans, ones to the north of the border there, should all get together and complain to the military-industrial complex, because we're paying the biggest carbon taxes and so on for Kyoto. And where is our share of global warming? Where has it gone? We aren't getting value for money. We're getting frozen up here. So we should all get a big organization together and complain to all the politicians to make sure we get our warming and representation for all this taxation, because it's freezing right now. And as we go through all these changes, these condition changes, we'll be conditioned all our lives. From every program you've watched, every cartoon you've watched, every nature program, love the animals, love the trees, all that stuff, we've all been conditioned to our present state, which is a form of la-la land, with big boys have us conditioned, ready to go into the new system of almost an earth worship. We must save the earth at all costs. And that sounds all nice and wonderful. After all, it is your home. But the ones behind all this and telling us to do it are the same foundations that run the corporations that exploit the planet Earth and have moved vast mountains in order to get certain minerals and laid waste to various jungles down through the last few centuries. It's the same boys who are pushing this greening movement, because the greening movement is a form of straitjacket. We'll all have to live accordingly to the new system. We have to serve the poor old planet. And then they'll give us our new priesthood, which will be comprised of technocrats and bureaucrats who run it all for us. And we'll all bow down to them. We'll bow down for our food, our water. We'll bow down for our existence to these new priests who are coming along. They're already set up, in fact. Most folk quite enjoy it. Back with more after the following messages. Hi, folks. Alan Watt back with Cutting Through the Matrix. And after my last gripe about where's our share of global warming, to say we should all get together, get a big organization together, because we're paying the biggest amount of taxes here to save the old planet, and we should get our fair share of global warming. Tell your member of parliament or your congressman today. But getting into this other field of where the future is going and where it's actually at, we tend to be segregated in the generations by design, of course. It wasn't so long ago that generations grew up and even wore the same clothes as their great-grandparents wore. The fashion never changed. All of that's a fairly recent phenomena. in the course of history. We have been guided or shepherded along in not haphazardly, but in a planned way, because the elite said a long, long time ago the biggest problem they had was to control the minds of the population. And it's not difficult to control the minds of the population as long as you can indoctrinate all of the population in the same cultural upbringing or education. For centuries and thousands of years, in fact, religions did it very, very well. And you'd bounce off your opinion of the world and your immediate environment to those around you, and they'd bounce it back. And you tend to all agree because the only information you had about reality at all came from your religion, which was indoctrinated into the culture itself. So everyone would agree with you. Everyone would agree with you that hell was down there somewhere, and if you were bad, you'd burn forever. And if you're good, you might just get a chance to go up into the clouds and become a musician and play a harp and stuff like that. And everyone would nod their heads and agree. So it's simply gone on a step further. We have a better scientific indoctrination today. And the movie Matrix wasn't just a happenstance movie where people fought battles inside the programs of the internet. It's actually a goal. Now, I've talked before of how the Pentagon and CIA and all the combination of the secret services of the world, really at the top, and all the top countries, are working towards this agenda to rob the minds of the public, what's left of them, and bring them into the next step, which is a virtual reality world, not a real world, but an almost real world, a parallel world coexisting. And people will be enticed initially into this world until you can't do anything without going into it. It will become your real world for you, the only one you'll imagine. And because they've segregated the generations, those who are older, even parents who've just had children for a few years, don't notice the indoctrination their own children are getting through their cartoons. They buy them the games to play with, and now you can buy games where you can create your own doppelganger, your double, or even a better double than you think you are, because you're taught not to be satisfied with yourself. So they go into these games and they can build a composite of the character that they want to be. Look at all the movies that have been churned out of Hollywood. Look at television, of which most folk are glued to most of their lives. Look at the characters they present as stars, movie stars. And it was around the 60s they began to all begin to look the same. The males looked all the same. The females looked pretty well all the same. Very little differences in them at all. And part of that was because Hollywood was trying to give you an idealized picture of what we should be. Not real, but an idealized picture. And it's worked so well that many people spend all their money and their credit cards and mortgage their homes to try and look like the ideal character that they see in the movies. It becomes an addiction and a neurosis, and pretty well a psychosis for some. You can see that their faces are wasted away with so much plastic surgery. But that's what Hollywood is projecting, because everything that comes out of Hollywood or even television or advertising is based on making you feel inadequate. You worship the heroes because you think they're better than you. They would do things that you would only dream about doing because you'd be too scared to do in reality. So you follow these heroes, and they always look like the perfected man or woman. And you identify with that part of it, and you want to be like that. The children see the same thing. We're all different shapes and sizes, and with different features. That's called normalcy. We've been taught not to like normalcy at all. And I mean taught. It wasn't an accident. Now they're going, and they have been for quite some time, to the children to create these composite characters. And the children are given selections that still look cartoonish. And it's also a form of androgyny, because if you look at the characters they give in these games, where they can build their character and have their own friends and buy their own cars and even design their own homes and so on, a virtual world has been created for them. This is in preparation for this other world that the Pentagon, the military-industrial complex, has already set up. Set it up. They have all the information, and this has been in the newspapers. I've read stuff over the air about it, where they have a double of everyone, a double of you, with all the information they've gleaned from you, or stolen from your internet, or even opened your mail and watched all the stuff that you purchase. All that's in the persona of this double. So do you see where it's going? The children are getting taught, again, to go into this thing already, to want it. We have our first cases of children who are addicted to it. They don't want to be in the real world. They want to look perfect, this perfect, flawless, no blemishes on their face and so on, the character that they've created for themselves with the perfect friends and the perfect possessions. It's all already here. And this is the agenda, to bring us into a matrix system and to make the public want it. For the older people, they'll bring lots of sex into it, of course, and we already know they're going to come out shortly with equipment which will monitor your... In fact, it's already been declared. It basically works on your brain. It's like a cap you put on your head, and it monitors your brain patterns, but it can also send signals in and stimulate areas of your brain. And you'll have what you'll think are fantastic experiences, especially sex-wise. There's no doubt about it. Sex sells, always has, always will, until we're completely altered. And people won't want to come back into the real world. We already have cases of male and females who are addicted to internet sex itself. They have no contact with physical people with regards to that subject at all. You can see where it's going. And here's a report from the BBC News. It was 11th of December 2007. And it's written by some character up in this particular world where they're creating all this stuff. And this is a form of predictive programming where they tell you a blatant truth, but they don't give it any negative connotations at all. And it's called Exodus to Virtual Worlds Predicted. The appeal of online virtual worlds such as Second Life is such that it may trigger an exodus of people seeking to disappear from reality. And again, here's that term, the holy term you've been taught is holy. An expert on large-scale online games has said. Virtual worlds has seen huge growth since it became mainstream in the early years of this decade, developing out of massive multiplayer role-playing games. So it's role-playing games, you see. It says, and the online economies in some match those of real-world countries. Again, a duplicate. The draw is such that they could have a profound effect on some parts of society. Edward Castronova, I love the names they give these people. Edward Castronova, Associate Professor in the Department of Telecommunications at Indiana University, told BBC World Service's Digital Planet program. I think I'm going digital. My guess is that the impact on real world really is going to involve folks disappearing from reality in a lot of places where we see them, he said. Varying involvement, Dr. Castronova, who's written a book on the subject, one of many, I'm sure there's a whole plethora of them emerging on the shelves right now, written a book on the subject entitled Exodus to the Virtual World. Here we go. We're the slaves escaping into worse slavery here. To the virtual world drew parallels to the 1600s when thousands of people left Britain for a new life in North America. This is how they're going to compare it to you. That certainly changed North America, and that's usually what we focus on, but it certainly changed the UK as well, he said. What I tried to do in this book is say, listen, even if the typical reader doesn't spend any time in virtual worlds, what is going to be the impact of him on him of people going and doing this. And he predicted that everyone will be involved in a virtual environment. Now, here you are. Everyone, that's like everyone, will be involved in a virtual environment within 10 years, although the level of that involvement will vary. He said, while some people will be colonists, see how the terms are given, you're a pioneer, the virtual frontier opens up and off they go and disappear. Others will just use virtual worlds to get together with distant family and friends. As to give presents there, so they're really there as you chat to each other. But he stressed there will be a group of people that spends all their lives there, and that the big question is the size of this group. And I'll be back with more on this particular topic after the following messages. Hi, Alan Watt. We're back with Cutting Through the Matrix and exposing this matrix. It's pretty well here already. Whenever they announce something that's coming, it's here. And believe you me, there's nothing to iron out. There's no bugs to iron out in it. It's all been done a while ago. That's how it's always done. We're the last to be told any truth. And we're told through little exposés like this one, the one that's been printed at the BBC and published, and the book that this particular character is flogging to us, Predictive Programming. It says here, escape and refuge. The appeal, he said, is not for those in a good job, but for those working low-paid, low-skill jobs. You know, the losers, he's telling me here, that's what this means. It's like a fix-up house or a handyman special. It means you're a loser. That's what they mean by that. Would you rather be a Starbucks worker or a starship's captain, he said. Oh, my goodness, what a choice to make, eh? I wonder what one I'd pick. But he also stressed that since virtual worlds are social, he sees increased interaction in them as a step forward. They're telling you, in other words, that life is so boring, fearful, and awful that people will just love this virtual world. And doesn't this echo exactly the speech that Aldous Huxley gave at Berkeley University? You can look into my website, it's on there in the archives in the audio section, where he said that most people are unhappy with their lives. And then he goes on to explain why they could justify basically programming us and running our lives for us and making us happy with drugs or electrical stimuli or something exact same, because it's the same guys behind it all. This is an old agenda. So this guy goes on to say, this character here, he says, he also stressed that since virtual worlds are social, they're social, these virtual worlds. Everybody's nice, all politically correct, and no blemishes, as I say, so your eyes won't be offended by a pimple or a wart or something. He says, but he also stressed that since they're social, he sees increased interaction in them as a step forward. Well, yeah, you're right. You can move forward to the edge of a cliff very easily. They never explain progress, do they? They just mention the term, and this is a step forward. And he also highlighted the difference between seeing them as an escape and as a refuge. Oh, we'll just go into a refuge. You know, the word heaven used to be the refuge, and it came from a haven. A safe haven is where you brought your ship in from the rough seas. Same old deal, sold under another guise. And he also highlighted the difference between seeing them as an escape and a refuge. If reality is a bad thing, or reality is a bad thing, and they make sure it is, don't they? And people are going into virtual worlds to reconnect. You're going in to reconnect. The trick of the electric. The word you would deploy is refuge. Refuge, he said. We're all refugees going into a virtual world. A father of two spending 90 hours a week in a virtual world because he doesn't like his wife, I would say that's escapism, and it isn't anything you would say is good. See the baby talk? It's almost like the child talk. That's how they speak to us now. That's how they did it in the Soviet Union. It's all here. But if it's a heavy-set girl from a small town who gets victimized just because her body isn't the right kind of body, you know, the Hollywood type, and she goes online to make friends because she can't get a fair shake in the real world, then I would say the virtual world is more of a refuge. It's more of a refuge. Mind you, if you took the wrong kind of dope, they'd be banging on your doors and pulling you off to prison. But this is better, you see. Making you crazy and mad, as long as they control it, is better. Isn't that something, boys and girls? So there you go. a virtual world coming to a place near you. And they have a little picture on this particular article of the 3 boob babes, the virtual 3 boob babes. They're all perfect. As I say, there's not a hair out of place. There's not a blemish on the skin. They're all just so perfect. You see, something you can't have in the real world. So we'll see how many refugees there are that escape into this, and I do predict there'll be lots of them. And the more they step up the fear factor, and this is the key to it all, they create our system, they keep us under stress, and people will go into this in droves as predicted. Now we've got Timothy from Massachusetts on the line. Are you there, Timothy?
Hey, Alan.
Hello.
I just wanted to get your comments on Hayek's book, The Road to Serfdom, because he seems to cover a lot of what you discuss.
Which book is that?
The Road to Serfdom.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm just curious, because the copy I have is from 1944, and I guess one of the NGOs just has this big series out, and they rediscovered it. And this book was such a huge hit, supposedly, with economists at the time. And if you read the book, it's really got nothing about that, and it's just completely is, the chapters in there are why do the bad, worst people rise to the top, and, the rule of law, and...
Yeah.
And, it takes a lot of reading to get through it, because, of course, it's, written so sheep like me don't understand it, but I just was curious if you had read it and what your comments were on it.
Well, I've read that, and I got that book and a whole bunch of books on similar topics that I couldn't find, in fact, in the bookstores, from a bank that had thrown them all out, and this is for their higher employees. This is actually not a bank, but it was the banking tower where this main branch of the bank was installed. And I was surprised. They had all of these kind of books there, and that was one of them. And you're quite right. They read those ones at the top of these economic structures, because it's important to understand how their world works for them and how to manipulate even further to the next step. Hold on, I'll be back after the following messages.
Okay.
Hi. I'm back with Cutting Through the Matrix, and we're talking to Timothy about a particular book, one of many books published on the system, the real system as it really does exist, not as the way it's promoted through propaganda, which is entertainment, to the general public. And you'll find if you do go through the newspapers, look for book sales, because they're really dumping books like crazy, and they have been for the last 10 years. Look for books that are being dumped by the big banking foundation, their towers, really, their headquarters in cities, because you get an awful lot of stuff there you generally can't get made available to the general public because they're too expensive to buy.
Right.
Some of the books out there, are $500 even for a new copy or a reprint.
Because the masses aren't supposed to be reading that stuff.
Yeah, that's right. And you'll find the same thing with some of the books for Bertrand Russell and others of that ilk. There's a foundation, and they give out new books, and it'll cost you $500-600 for one paperback. Because, you're not supposed to read the kind of material when they talk to their own peer group. That's for their peer group, and it's dangerous reading material for the general public if they can understand it.
And I had, I always get a lot of questions, but I've, been doing a lot of reading myself, and I just don't understand really what we're supposed to do. My only conclusion I've come to is knowing how it works is better than going through life, following your shepherd blindly, I guess. Yeah, most people are literally going from a conditioned physical world, where they've already been conditioned not to ask questions and not to even notice what's really around them, one virtual reality into another virtual reality. Only this time you'll leave your body behind. Your body is going to be a battery. That's how it will be used. You'll be a robot that they can then use to do any function they wish, and you will never know what's happening. You'll be in the other world, having a great old time to yourself, you think. And that's on the cards.
So if they can make people unhappy enough, they'll go towards this in droves. And they already are doing it to the children. There's games there, it says, create a 3D avatar. Hang out with friends. You make the friends who they are. You create them. Play games, build a home, design and sell things, and pick the car of your dreams. There are people now who are addicted to this other world, and mainly children. They're addicted to it already.
Mm-hmm.
So the more stress you can pump up in the world, the more people will go into fantasy. See, fantasy by its nature is a healthy thing if when it's done in a healthy way. That's what part of it is for. It's also a thinking process. You think through in a different realm of fantasy where you can consider things you wouldn't even normally consider in a conscious state, because some of them will touch on topics that you don't want to associate yourself with. But nonetheless, you actually, it's like a dream. You can do things in a dream you wouldn't normally do in real life. But through that dreaming process, you're actually learning something about nature itself. So fantasy is a good thing, but like all needs that we have, you'll find that big business and then the government institutions that want to control you want to exploit those needs. They always exploit a drive or a need to the maximum. And so they're exploiting fantasy, have been doing it since the advent of books, and then followed up by cinema, as they called it, and which is just amen, is backwards if you speak it in the spoken. And then it was followed by television.
Mm-hmm.
So they exploit your basic natural self for their own ends, and we don't realize it because we fall into it through a natural inclination, but then it's exploited.
Well, we're trained from the start, right?
Absolutely. And as are your parents.
In
your
kindergarten,
parents are addicted to it, you won't question it.
In kindergarten is the garden of children that they can grow and cut up and put into the bigger salad.
Absolutely. Absolutely, yeah. And then that's where they put you into kindergarten, and actually that's where they weed you out.
Yeah.
They put the ones that can think. The brighter ones and so on, yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Nice talking to you.
Thanks for calling.
Bye.
Now we've got Chris from Texas here. You there, Chris? Hello, Chris.
Hey, Alan.
Yes, go ahead.
Hey, good to talk to you, man. I just want to put a plug in for your book. Very, very interesting, very quality material. I got your second book, and I'm ready to go over that, and it's very, very good.
It's different for sure, yeah.
Oh, yeah, definitely different, and it's like you said, it really makes you think. And you were just talking about like how, fantasy, it's a natural thing, and I think like the name of the game with these elites is to take everything, good and co-opt it, turn it around and use it and incorporate it into their system, and I think like Christianity is one thing that they've done and perverted and twisted around, and I wanted to ask you specifically about you talked about the Christianity being a continuum of the sun god and that sort of thing, and my question is where is the source material for this? Because I try to research and find out more about it, and I know there's that Zeitgeist movie that's out, and they seem to me they're using some nefarious sources. I mean, they quote Masons and Peter Freegan, Frank Gandy, and their work, and those authors, you can't find any kind of where they cite any kind of source material. I don't understand where's. I guess my question is, where's the source material? Where are the actual texts that they're going off of for these ideas?
You can go into the other holy books, and it's true. You'll find that the same samenesses, or not just similarities, but samenesses to do with the main hero. It's also in the wording of books are books. They're not holy. The message is holy, and it's perverted when you start worshipping the book. Your perception changes from the message, which is important, to believing everything that's written in that book. Once you believe the book is holy, you don't realize it's getting changed with every publication. It's been altered, and you still think it's holy. And that was a trick, of course, they've played down through the ages, even when they wrote it by hand and put them in the temples of Alexandria and other places. It wasn't the only place. Alexandria was only one of many, and they all had copies of the same handwritten scripts. So nothing was ever lost. But we know that in the coding of the Bible itself, if you read them, you always find that God is the Most High God. He does. Now, the Most High God is the sun. And when he's at midsummer, he's at the highest. He's the Most High God. You have all these terms there. And if you look into the original, and you can still get them from Britain, original books of the King James Bible, you'll find the introduction by the printers promoting the book and giving a praise to King James. And it says right in there, to the Most High, you are the Son, the capital S-U-N. And he also calls him a Scion. It's got all the terminology in there. And the previous queen was called that Occidental star. So it's full of coding through it for those who understand it. And it's true enough. Now in ancient Egypt, they used to have 10 symbols of the Zodiac. And they had the sun who went through the 10 symbols. And later in Ptolemy's day, they put up to 12 symbols. And the Zodiac has always changed too, because even the ecliptic that we go around, this wobble the Earth has brought in extra constellations that weren't there before. So even the wobble of the Earth wasn't always the same.
Right. I was trying to find the parallels. I know that you
can only find them by going through the actual books, looking at the stories of the hero figure, the terms that he's called, the miracles that he does, and how many disciples he has round him. It's always the same. They die at midwinter because the sun dies, technically speaking. It goes east to the south. It can't go back up to the west again and set. And so that's the death. That's midwinter. And after 3 days of hanging...
I know what you're saying, but I don't see those... I mean, in the Christian religion, I understand there's 12 disciples, and when you're talking about this occult, the knowledge, and the more I look into it, they have allegories and symbols for just about every animal, every number.
That's right.
So you could basically overlay that over just about anything and get a kind of a meaning or that's kind of what I see now. It's kind of almost
what you raise, you see, if it's trying to justify a belief, then that's called faith. And you understand, there's no amount of proof or evidence or logic is going to change that, because faith isn't founded upon provable fact. That's why it's called faith.
But I'm asking for sources, and that's
you literally will have to
cite the works of these
go into the comparative religions books, especially the ones they had a lot of really good, big, thick ones, hundreds of pages that were sold at the beginning of the 1900s. You'll pay a fair dollar for them, but that's your fastest way to get to the actual parts that you want to find.
Do you have any material that you produce yourself that goes into this more? Like I know
not too much more, because it's all been done before. It's all been done before, and really it's up to the individual, as I say, to seek out comparative religions, especially the older books.
And I'm looking, but I don't see anything. I mean, I see, they say that Horus and Osiris and that.
It's all. See, the thing is, what you're looking at is right in front of your face, right? It's right in front of your face. The oldest legend you have is about Nimrod and his wife Semiramis, and then the son became Tammuz, and yet the same story with Osiris and his wife Isis, who's always his sister or wife, and the son Horus again.
They say it was born of a virgin, but
it's all the same stories. It's all the same stories. It's over and over again, and that cannot be denied. It cannot be denied,
The only problem is where's the citations? I know that we have those, that material, the writings, the Book of the Dead, and so on and so forth. Yeah. But why don't they go ahead and let that stuff out? And they're clearly wanting to get beyond Christianity and get to this new worldly religion. Why do they put people out like Freak and Gandhi and these people who don't cite sources? I don't understand that.
Well, they'll do it at the right time. At the moment, America who's have the heaviest dose of religion for a purpose. Eventually, America, the U.S.'s function will be over, and all that was hidden will be revealed. And you'll find a whole bunch of books will be given out to the public then with all the data that you're looking for, if you cannot find it yourself.
Is that why the
it is there.
took
I mean,
over
you can't
the
deny similarity after similarity, and I won't get into religious disputes because it's a waste of time. It's a waste of time. But if you can't see the similarities, it is available in the comparative religious studies.
I'm looking, but I just haven't. I don't. I mean, I keep hitting dead ends, and I'm looking at this stuff, and they're saying, "Well, this is paralleling."
Look into comparative religion, but spend the bucks on the old books. Spend the dollars on the old books, and you'll have to do the work to go through them, because if really yourself, you're going to have to convince.
Mm-hmm.
The battle is inside yourself, you see.
Right.
Okay? Thanks for calling.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And now we've got Red One from Amman, Jordan. Are you there, Red One? Hello?
Yes, hello.
Hello. Go ahead.
Peace be upon you, Alan.
Yes, I can hear you. Yeah.
I said peace be upon you.
Pardon?
I said peace be upon you.
Peace be upon you too, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
How are you doing?
I'm complaining that we're not getting our share of global warming here. If they moved all the snow up to the North Pole, it would be back as it used to be. If they took it from my back garden here, that's how much snow I have.
I will do some supplication for you.
Yes.
Actually, about global warming, I immigrated, me and my family, to Jordan, and I've been actually observing the skies for about 10 months now, and I actually cannot see any chemtrails. Could you explain this?
You may be getting it at night. That's one possibility. I know that they used to do it in some parts of the world, some parts of Australia too. They were getting heavily dosed during the day. They complained, and of course they started to do it at night instead, or else they were doing it outside the cities, and the prevailing winds would bring it across. The only way you can really tell are if you've been watching it for 10 years or more, and you remember what clouds used to look like, you can now identify the new fake ones as they come over, because they have strange strands attached to them, and even the shade of whiteness is different in them.
But
it's hard to say if they're spraying correctly. Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, so most of the time it's a really clear blue sky, no clouds at all. 80% of the time.
Yeah. And have you noticed any difference in your temperatures at all?
Yes, some people are saying that actually the temperatures are not normal anymore.
Yes.
So it should be colder than it was in the past.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's maybe warming, but I don't know what the reason for that could be.
Yeah. Well, we do go through cycles of warming and cooling over sometimes over 100-year periods, and people forget that even during the Crusades in the Middle Ages, there was 200 years of the highest heat ever, where even back in Europe they didn't build houses with fireplaces because they couldn't have fires in their home. It was too warm. They had to cook outside, and then it began to cool again, and they had heavier snows over the winters, and so we go back and forth like this. People have been taught that temperature is supposed to be always the same every year. It's not. It never was. So they're using this as an excuse, of course, but they are certainly spraying the skies over Canada and the States. Even California is getting it heavily, and some contacts in China now are telling me they're now seeing the spray as well. Some teachers have told me this. Hold on, and we'll talk about it after these messages.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Alan Watt, and we're cutting through the matrix. And we've read one from a man, Jordan, on the line here, talking about this lack of spraying in his particular area. And I know that China initially hadn't been done. Some of the countries that did not sign the Open Sky Treaty were not being sprayed. But even the countries in Europe, like Switzerland, that didn't sign it, are getting stuff coming in from other countries now, so they can't even escape it. And one of the symptoms I noticed here is even when the sky was blue, around the horizon, there's a white haze all along the horizon. And that was another telltale sign that the polymer type mix, which is very almost like looking through polythene, clear polythene, was in the air. So I don't know if you've noticed anything like that at all.
Yeah, maybe. But could it not be that because this is the capital city of Jordan and the king and some other elitists are living here, they're getting less? It could very well be.
It could very well be because that whole area is going to be built up. It already is up and through the Gulf. They're going to build all the way up. Right into that area is a new place for the wealthy, ultra elite of the world to live in the next 10, 15 years as the Western world goes downhill. So that could be possible.
Okay, because I heard you saying this in one of your blurbs, on one of your radio shows.
Yes. Yeah.
Because of the huge, the building of huge airports.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, lots of, and even Halliburton took up from Texas and moved over to Dubai, I think it was, they went to. So yeah, there's a lot of plans for the Middle East completely, and a lot of the Arabic countries to do with the wealthy building the brand new cities. And as I say, it makes perfect sense. As Europe starts to go down, they're projecting riots and stuff here because eventually the food and everything will go out of sight. The fuel will be so expensive they can't afford it. So the whole way of living is to be brought down in the Western world, and they want a refuge for themselves to go. They'll use our tax money to build it, of course, for themselves, as they always have in the past.
Yeah, because I see that the government is changing from the dollar to the euro. One of those signs is that they are changing their police cars from American brand to German brand.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and again, all that was predicted a long time ago by the ones who planned it. So nothing will come as a surprise, although they'll tell the public it's a period of instability, but in reality it was all planned this way. The big boys would never, ever sign the GATT treaty and all the other treaties to give all their industry away to China without foreseeing what was going to happen down the road. So it's all planned together, of course. We're already under a global system.
Yes.
Yeah.
I wanted to go back to the main subject of this radio show, was the brain chip, virtual reality brain chip.
Yeah. Yes.
I had a theory I wanted to share with you. Would you like me to tell it in short?
Sure, yeah.
I've been studying the religion, and then I tried to get the factual facts actually into it. And then I found out that actually history is always repeating itself.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right in that. In fact, we could talk about that next week. And I've still to call you back, by the way. I will do it. I'm so far behind and stuff. I'll get back to you.
Yeah, I know.
From Hamish myself.
But if you give me your number, I can try to get a hold of you.
I will do. And that's the music now for the end. So from Hamish myself is good night, and may your God or your gods go with you.